Hi folks, this is Jake of Jake's Famous Foods, and today we're going to do something interesting. Now, I've been watching a lot of videos related to how people have been doing different processes and things like that. So the one I found interesting was a process related to steaks. And what they were doing was taking a steak, a relatively cheap steak, and what they did is add salt to the steak, because what they wanted to do is take a cheap steak and make it tender. So what we're going to do is we're going to work that same process. However, what we're going to do is do that on beef ribs. Now, I buy a lot of beef ribs and I enjoy beef ribs. But what I find is, because I don't want to pay the really high prices, or because in a lot of times during the year, beef ribs can be limited in the terms of size and scope depending on where you go and what part of the country you're in. So you end up finding the beef ribs at these discount locations. And what I do is I buy those beef ribs, which I enjoy, but the problem of course is the cheaper the price, the cheaper sometimes the quality of the meat, and they can get a little tough. So we're going to try that same steak salt process, but we're going to use that salt process on our beef ribs today. So let's get started, okay? So today what we're going to do is to take our beef ribs, we've got them here on the side, and we just got a box of basic kosher salt. And it doesn't matter which kosher salt you use. So what you're going to do is cover the entire surface of the beef ribs with the kosher salt, okay? And we're going to get it completely crusted all over the beef ribs. You see that process going on right here. Get it nice and thick in there. Get it on the top. We're going to press it in just a little bit, because what we want to do is get it to really work its way into the meat to break it down. And like I said, these are not expensive beef ribs. These are just really basic. Probably cost me no more than $8 for the entire set. So I'm going to turn that over. I'm going to put it on the back. Now you notice on the back here, the ribs are really thick, and that's the fat that covers the back of the ribs. Now for beef ribs, you don't necessarily have to take the fat off. It's not really necessary, because the meat, obviously, if you take it's not like pork ribs. If you take the back off, then what you find is you get access to the actual meat. But with beef ribs, it's not necessary, because the meat generally presents itself closer to the front of the actual rib. So it's not necessary to do that back thing. So let's make sure we get all the salt in there. Get it in there nice and good, okay? And like I say, when you buy the ribs at these cheaper locations, they generally come in two sections. So I've got the second section here. We're going to do the same thing with the second section and cover it nice and generously with the kosher salt. And like I said, this is just standard kosher salt. We just bought it at the supermarket. Nothing famous, nothing fantastic. You know, these companies that make this stuff, they make it by the ton, actually 100 ton probably. And so it's relatively inexpensive to buy and to get access to. So we're going to get it all over the meat here. And the same thing is going to happen with on the back. So get it covered on the back here. Get it all over the bones in the front there. Make sure we get it nice and covered. We want it to do its job. We want it to work its way in. What we're actually going to do is pull the liquid out of the meat by having it sit, and what that'll do is actually tenderize the meat itself. So let's press that salt in there. Let's get it in there nice and deep and cover all those places that might not have the salt on it, okay? Anything that's got a little liquid on it, that will absorb the salt and get it in there deeper. Great, it's looking good. All the meat's coated. Put a little extra there. Okay, get it in there nice and deep. All right, now the process is that we're going to take this meat, and once we got it we're going to actually bag it. So once we got it bagged, we're going to put it in our refrigerator and allow it to rest for about an hour, because that's going to work its way to drawing out the liquids in the meat. Now if you want to put it in a little longer, say like 2 hours, then you can certainly do that. But I would not recommend having it in no more than 2 hours. I think at that point you may actually start to cause the meat to become tough. So let's get them in a bag. I've got a bag here. We're just gonna get them inside the bag. And I've used the dry hand, wet hand technique. So got my right hand is my dry hand, and my left hand is my wet hand. So we're just going to get them in the bag. We're going to get them wrapped up nicely, okay? And then we'll get them onto the, we'll just set them right here in the sink just to hold. We'll get them in the bag. We've obviously done that. We're going to get them in the refrigerator, let them sit for about an hour and then or so, and then we'll get our grill on, and I'll show you our process for our grill. We're going to use the snake method process, which I like to use. I like it a lot. It's a simple process of 3 hours on the grill, just by itself, bare. Then you take it and you put it in, take the meat out, you put it in foil, you add some liquids, those kinds of things, to let it cook it for about 2 hours. And then you take the meat out afterwards out of the foil, actually in the foil. You put it in an oven or a fairly sealed place, and you let it rest for about an hour. And then afterwards, after it's done resting, you take it and you eat it from there. So we're going to do that process today. So hope you guys stay along with us as we go forward. We're going to show you some of our products that we're using in the process. We're going to use today, we're going to do Santa Maria style. And I know some of you have heard of Santa Maria style. I actually live in the San Luis Obispo region. So in San Luis Obispo, there's Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, and of course Santa Maria. And Santa Maria is particularly where the Santa Maria style barbecue became famous. So we've got a Santa Maria dry rub that we're going to use. We'll put those on the ribs, and we'll show you the process, and we'll walk you through as we go throughout the day. So I hope you guys stick along as we go forward and watch this video. And if there's any questions, don't hesitate to contact us at jakesfamousfoods@gmail.com, or you can get our products at jakesfamousfoods.com. Okay, thank you guys. Okay folks, we've got our beef ribs right here. Now we had them in the bag for just over an hour, and I wanted to show you a couple of things. You can maybe, I don't know if you can see it or not, but see the liquid that's been formed, and that all came out of the ribs. That salt drew out that liquid. Okay, so what we're going to do is use our wet hand, dry hand technique. We're just going to take the ribs out of the bag, and you see them nice and salted there. Okay, great, that's fantastic. You can discard that bag, and what we're going to do is we're going to wash that salt off. And once we wash the salt off, what we're actually going to do is come back, going to pat them dry just a little bit, and we're going to add our own seasoning. So we'll get that done, and we'll show you guys what they look like, okay? Okay folks, what I've got here is our pure Santa Maria dry rub. This is parsley, garlic, salt, and pepper, little coarse brown black pepper, okay? And a smoked kosher salt. The traditional Santa Maria style dry rub is parsley, it's salt, pepper, and garlic, okay? Those are the three basic combinations. But what I've done is I've taken a little bit of onion and mustard and picked up the flavor profile on the Santa Maria style dry rub. So what we're going to do is we're going to add that all over our ribs. We're going to use the wet hand, dry hand technique, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually leave this one, and I'm going to put a little olive oil on it, because in Santa Maria, at Santa Maria barbecue, sometimes what they do is they put olive oil to actually allow the seasonings to adhere a little better. But for me, I typically don't do that, but for this video, I'm going to actually add it. So, okay, so we'll get it back on both sides, okay, along the ends of the bones there. Get all the ends done, get it over the fat, because all it's going to do is add more flavor. And you see those nice large garlic chips along with the kosher smoked salt, so it's fantastic. Okay, let's get the ends nicely. Okay, I'm going to season it. I'd say it's fairly generously, not over seasoning. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to get a little olive oil on the second set of ribs. Alrighty, I've got our actually really nice high-end extra virgin olive oil here. So we're going to put that all over the ribs. So get it out of the bottle here. There we go. Doesn't have to be too liberal, just enough to get it to spread, because you're going to work the wet hand, dry hand technique. So get it all over the meat, Cover the surfaces nicely. Okay. If you need a little more, add a little more. It's up to you. This looks pretty good. Now let's get the meat turned over. Add just a hint of it on the backside. There we go. Spread it around nicely. Get it over the end bones. And now let's get the seasoning on. And you notice right away it tends to adhere a little more, which is fine, and that's exactly what we want. Since it's the backside, we don't need as much seasoning, but we just want to make sure it gets on there. So let's get the rest of it covered. Okay, get it on there. And you'll see a lot of it spread. I mean, it's just gonna kind of drop all over the place. That's typical with dry rub. If you did it probably inside of a pan or something, you know, you probably contain your seasonings a little better. It's up to you, you know, whichever works best for you. That's the way this process goes. Okay, so we've got one side that's dry with just the seasoning, and then we've got one side that's got a little extra virgin olive oil, okay, with the seasoning. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go out, we're going to get our grill going, get it started, and once it's going and it's at temperature, now we're going to work on doing the ribs at about 250, 275 today. So let's go ahead and we'll get our fire going, we'll get our ribs out there, and then I'll show you once we've got our grill going and everything's working, okay? See you outside. Okay folks, we're outside now, and I just wanted to show you how I've set up my grill. I'm going to be doing the 3-2-1 process, so I've already got my charcoal laid out. I've got my wood on, and what I did also is I soaked my wood. I actually soaked it for about 20 minutes just to slow down the smoking process, give off actually a little bit more smoke than normal, so it doesn't burn up quite as fast. So let's go ahead and get this fire started, and then we'll get the meat on, and we'll get our temperature regulated, and we'll show you the process as we move forward, okay? Okay, I wanted to show you where we are so far. We've got our ribs on the grill, got a couple of probes that are measuring the temperature of the grill, and also the temperature of the meat. Although this is pretty thin beef ribs, a little hard to get that probe in there, but we got it in there anyway. What's going to happen is the charcoal is going to work its way around. It'll work its way around to the right, and we'll pick up the smoked wood, or the wood for smoking as it goes, and we'll measure the process as we go. So once we're 3 hours in, I'll show you the process of wrapping the ribs and getting them off and getting them back on the grill in the foil, okay? You'll see us in 3 hours. See you then. Okay folks, we've taken the meat off the grill. It looks fantastic. What we're going to do is we're going to make two different flavor baths for the meat. So I want to show you the ribs as they finished off. This is the one without the olive oil. And we're going to just produce a nice little flavor profile for the meat. And how I do it is by adding a couple of different ingredients. I'm going to start with a little bit of butter. Now I've cut up some sections of butter, and I've just laid them out here, and what we're going to do is just get the butter on the grill. One I'm going to do with a liquid and one that I'm going to do without. This particular one, because it doesn't have the olive oil, I'm going to actually add the liquid to the profile. So I've got a little bit of beef broth. So I'm going to add some beef broth because the beef broth will intensify the flavor of the actual ribs. So just a little bit, maybe about half a cup, maybe quarter cup, a little more than that. I'm going to actually add some brown sugar. So I'm going to take a little brown sugar, just going to sprinkle that in, okay? Get it into the beef broth like that. Maybe about a little over a quarter cup of brown sugar, okay? And then I'm going to come along with just a little bit of honey. And I want the honey to not only act as a little bit of a thickener, but I wanted to add just a nice little sweetness to the actual beef broth. So I've got that in. Now I'm going to take my ribs. I'm simply going to lay them down on top of the butter. So you're right on top of that. Now that I've done that, I'm just going to actually roll it up, get it squared away here, fold it over, fold it nicely, and then bring up the ends. Now I want to do it so that I don't lose my liquids inside. So that's good for one. And I'm going to take that and I'm just going to set it off to the side here while I bring out my second set, which was made with the olive oil. And you'll see it's really nice looking color. Turned out really well. So we're going to get those back, put out a little bit of butter, okay? And with this one, because we had the olive oil in the meat, I've chosen not to use the liquid profile. But what I'm going to do is add a little bit of brown sugar. Okay. And I'm going to add some honey. Now, because we used the salt and we took out the liquids from the actual meat, we actually drained it back. It's probably a good idea to get some type of liquid into it. So I'm going to actually add just a little bit of honey. Actually, no, I've added the honey. So I'm going to add maybe a little bit of a guava or maybe an apple juice to the mix. So I'm going to do that now. You know, I was thinking about it, and since we're doing a barbecue, what we're going to do is actually add some barbecue sauce as opposed to adding a guava or apple juice. And that's our own Jake's Famous really good mild barbecue sauce. So we're going to put a little bit across the butter because that will intensify the flavors of the meat as well. And this is a natural gluten-free barbecue sauce. It's really wonderful. So why don't we get our meat on? Just going to turn them over and lay them right on top of the butter, okay? And then we're going to fold in the foil, just like we did the last one. And get that over. And bend that in. Being careful not to tear the bottom of the foil, because the last thing we want is to tear the bottom of the foil, which in turn will actually cause leaks. So we're going to take the two sections outside, get them back on the grill, and we're going to cook them for about 2 hours. Now, what I also want to mention is that, if I didn't mention it earlier, we started out looking for a temperature of about 250 to 275. Now, I cooked the ribs up to 200 degrees because that was my focus, is to get the meat to 200 degrees, then get it off the grill, get it into foil, and then get it into a nice little liquid so we create a nice little profile, and then we would bring it out and then let it rest thereafter. So what we're going to do is get it on the grill now for about 2 hours, actually 2 hours, and then we're going to take it out and let it rest. Now the resting part can be between an hour, 45 minutes and an hour. I typically like to go no less than 45 minutes to let the meat break down the natural tissues and collagens and those kinds of things, and just let the meat actually pick up its intensity of flavors. So we're going to get it out there on the grill, and then in about 2 hours we'll bring it in and we'll let it rest, and we'll show you then, okay? See you then. See that smoke coming up still? Let's open her up, take a little look inside. Really wonderful. Now you see how the meat is pulled back there, and you got nice bone exposed, and just some liquid in the bottom of the foil there. So what we're going to do is take them inside, let them rest for about an hour, and then we're going to slice them up and let you guys take a look. So we'll see you guys in an hour. Well, great to have you back. we've rested our ribs for about an hour now. What we're going to do is take a look and see what our results brought. Now, these ribs, as you probably noticed, have a little heavier bark than what you probably normally see. And that came primarily from the sugars that we use. We used the brown sugar and we used the honey. Now, the ribs on this side are the ones that had the olive oil on. And the ones on this side obviously had the beef broth and so on. So what we're going to do is take them apart, just take a little look and see what the results are. Now, keep in mind, these are very inexpensive ribs. We started out with the salt process. We coated them nicely. We let them sit for about an hour, and then we brought them out and we cleaned them, we washed them, we put seasoning on them that sat for about an hour as well, and then we put them on the grill and we smoked them for about 3 hours, and then afterwards we came back and we wrapped them up, put them in our nice little sweet liquids, and then we brought them back after 2 hours and put them inside we actually used the oven to rest the ribs in. So let's take it apart. This is the one that had the beef broth. So we're just gonna pull here. Notice how easily it pulls. Take a look at the meat there. Actually, you know, I think I am gonna use the knife. Maybe get a little better cut, a little visual cut so you can see that, but really doesn't take much to get into the meat there. Now look how beautiful it is. Absolutely wonderful. It's really, really nice. And it's got that nice little sweetness that comes from the mix that we used. So we're gonna get those there. And we're gonna take a look at the set that had the olive oil. Look how pliable that is. It's really wonderful. Let's get our knife down in there. And we get them off like this. Great. And you notice how wonderful that meat looks right in there. It's just really tender, really juicy if you can see it. Everybody does that squeeze test on their videos, so we're just gonna squeeze just a little bit. But this is really, really wonderful way to do our beef. And these are just cheap beef ribs that I got at this discount store for basically about $7 or $8 a pack. Nothing really expensive, but you make them tender by doing it that way. So I'll take a little bite here and let me see, tell you what I think of these beef ribs. That's awesome. The flavor is wonderful, especially with that nice bark and the nice smoky finish and the flavors and the sugars. Absolutely wonderful. So folks, give this video a shot. Try the process that I've shown you. Take a look at it, see if it works for you. I hope it does. It works for me. Take a look at our products. Our Jake's Pure Santa Maria Dry Rub. You can get it at jakesfamousfoods.com. At jakesfamousfoods.com. Okay. Thank you for taking time out to look at this video. Thank you for following along. I hope that your ribs come out as wonderful as these have, and that you'll check out our other videos where we do snake method process and we do tri-tip and we do chicken as well. Okay. Thank you guys.